The film starts in the 90s when a Great Dane puppy steals a rack of gyros from a shop. He is chased by a police officer and comes across a lonely little boy, Norville Shaggy Rogers, who made friends out of beach sand as he was often alone with no one to call his friend. Shaggy shares his sandwich with the puppy, which adds gyro meat to it. The officer found the dog and wanted to arrest it as a stray one. But Shaggy defended the dog, claiming it was his. Not believing Shaggy, the police ask him the name of the dog. He looks around him and sees a name on his snack bag. He calls the dog Scooby-Dooby-Doo, and the officer leaves. Shaggy brings Scooby home, where he gifts him his trademark collar. Shaggy promises never to leave Shaggy. From then on, the two become the best of friends. On Halloween night, Shaggy and Scooby dress up in their hero costume, the Blue Falcon and Dynamite. After trick and treat, they pass by a house that Shaggy explains as haunted, but their candies got snatched by two bullies who threw them into the house. Moments later, they meet a trio of friends, Fred Jones, Daphne Blake, and Velma Dinkley. The three friends were lovely and offered to go into the house with them. Inside the house, they were trapped and came across what appeared to be a ghost, Shaggy and Scooby in a wardrobe. The ghost-like creature chases after Daphne. Velma and Fred saw a string holding the ghost up. They cut it loose and found out it wasn't a ghost but Mr. Rigby wearing a Halloween mask. Scooby and Shaggy find stolen shop items stashed up in the house. Mr. Rigby got arrested. Afterwards, the four friends and Scooby began solving mysteries as Mystery Inc. The four friends, now grown up, are seated in a restaurant. Fred, Daphne, and Velma want to take Mystery Inc. to new heights as a severe company. Simon Cowell showed interest in investing in Mystery Inc. Simon was impressed with Fred's leadership, Velma's smartness, and Daphne's style. But he sees no potential in Scooby and Shaggy. He said he couldn't invest in the group with both as they were unimportant and were only the group's weak links. Hurt by Simon's words, Scooby and Shaggy left feeling unwanted. The guys go to a bowling alley, where they lament their feelings of being considered useless in the gang. But something strange broke out as the bowling balls and pins turned into deadly little robots called the Rotten and attack them. Scooby and Shaggy run until they enter the back of the alley. Meanwhile, Fred, Velma, and Daphne are driving back when they overhear the police scanner talking about the bowling alley incident, and they rush on over there. The Rotten chase after Scooby and Shaggy until they reach a dead end. With nowhere to run to, Shaggy was about to say goodbye to Scooby when they both got sucked into the Falcon Fury superjet. Dee Skiles, the pilot of the jet, greets them. She told them about Dick Dastardly, a supervillain, and how he had sent those robots to kill them. She takes them to meet the Blue Falcon and Dynamo, who makes a grand entrance to introduce himself. They doubt him to be the real Blue Falcon. Dynamite reveals that the real Blue Falcon is retired, and his son Brian is taking over his dad's position. Dick Dastardly chases after the Falcon Fury. Dick was seeking after the three skulls of Cerberus. He already has one. But no one seems to know why he was after Shaggy and Scooby. He attacks the Fury, but Dee saves them in hyperdrive. Brian asks Scooby and Shaggy to join them to help defeat Dick Dastardly. As Shaggy is about to refuse, Scooby tells him to allow them to take the opportunity to prove that they are not useless. Fred, Daphne, and Velma talk to the lady at the bowling alley about the incident. She explains everything and how they were taken up. She gives them one of the robots that got crushed and left behind. Velma inspects it, and they found a hair on it. After putting it in a scanner, the gang learns of Dastardly. They found that he was wanted for the theft of a skull in a museum. They also find out that he stole a database of dogs. Not understanding what he wants with Scooby and Shaggy, they drive off to save their friends. In Dastardly Jet, he was angry at his Rotten. He cuts off the head of one and replaces it with a vacuum cleaner to punish it for losing Scooby. In Falcon Fury, Dee and Dynamite searched for the second skull's location. But Brian seems to be paying less attention as he surfs the net and enjoys the fun from Shaggy and Scooby. When Dee says the second skull was located in the Gobi Desert, Brian argues that a fan on the internet had told him the skull was located in Romania. Meanwhile, as the Mystery Inc. head off to find their friends, Velma learns of how Dastardly has been going through a database of dogs, and the reason that he wants Scooby is that he is the last descendant of Peritas, dog of Alexander the Great, and that he could be the key to something big. Fred then drives them toward Dastardly demolition so that they might be able to find Dastardly himself. The Fury Falcon arrived at an amusement park in Romania only to find Dastardly, and he had already gotten the second skull from the Gobi Desert. He sends his Rottens after the heroes. Dynamite and Dee fight off the Rotten while Shaggy, Scooby, and Brian run off in freight. Scooby and Shaggy ran into an abandoned room and locked themselves up. But when Dastardly finds them, he makes it clear to Shaggy that he has no interest in him as he blasts him off through the wall. He then tries to get Scooby, who runs off and enters a house of the mirror. Dastardly finds him and tries to trick him into coming with him. He tells Scooby of his incredible destiny. Scooby gets away with help from Dynamite, and the heroes return to the Fury before losing Dastardly from their tails. However, the robot the Mystery Inc. was holding reactivates and alerts Dastardly of the gang's location. The gang were headed towards Dastardly demolition by a shortcut known to Fred. They are pulled over by an attractive officer who turns out to be Dastardly in disguise. He uses the Rottens to kidnap the gang and pull the Mystery Machine into his ship. They were imprisoned abroad, but they are freed when they find a Rotten whose head was pulled off and replaced with a dust vacuum. Daphne gives it a clean head, and it joins their side. They overhear Dastardly plotting a course for the location of the third skull, Messick Mountain. On the Fury Falcon, Brian gives Scooby a custom which removes the collar. The other heroes started treating him as more essential for the mission, leaving Shaggy feeling left out. Moments later, Velma manages to hack into Dynamite's system to deliver a message to Dee about heading to Messick Mountain. The gang saw that Dastardly was gathering the skulls to open a gate to an underworld. Alexander the Great and Peritas had made the lock to protect their treasures. Alexander or Peritas can only open that lock. Dastardly wants to use Scooby because he is a descendant of Peritas. Dastardly walks in to see the gang in his private room. Daphne then asks him about the dog to which he has a shrine, Mudley. Dastardly reveals his true intentions. He and Mudley were trying to open the portal to the underworld to steal the treasures from there, but he made Mudley go in alone, and although he was able to enter, he couldn't come out since he was not the key. Therefore, Mudley remains trapped in the underworld, and Dastardly tries to get him back. He has the Rottens re-imprison Velma and Daphne before taking Fred for himself. The heroes arrive on Messick Mountain and enter Mystery Island, while Shaggy chooses to stay behind on the jet. On their travels, they meet Captain Caveman, who is keeping the third skull, which he calls a Slagoople, and challenges the gang to fight him so they can take it. Shaggy was still on the jet when Fred arrived at the Mystery Machine. He asks Shaggy to take him to Scooby. Captain Caveman wipes the floor with Brian, but they are supposedly saved when Shaggy arrives with what appears to be Fred on the Mystery Machine. But it turns out Dastardly had taken the form of Fred to deceive Shaggy. Dastardly knocks out Captain Caveman, carries the skull, and takes Scooby with him. Shaggy reunites with the gang and feels responsible for Scooby getting captured. He gives a rousing speech to the gang, plus Brian, Dee, and Dynamite, and they all agree to save Scooby together. Meanwhile, Dastardly puts the skulls together and opens the portal to the underworld, transforming the town into an ancient appearance. As the heroes close in, he has the Rottens attack them, but Dynamite stops the Mystery Machine from crashing as it's blown out of the sky. Dastardly uses Scooby's paw to open the gates and unleash Cerberus, a three-headed fierce-looking monster. Realizing his mistakes, he runs away from the beast, but then runs back through the gates to find Mudley. Mudley appears dead at first, but it turns out he was just joking, and the two villains proceed to pilfer the treasures. Scooby frees his friends from the busted Mystery Machine, but Fred is distraught at the loss of the beloved van. They then proceed to plan to get Cerberus back through the gates. The good Rotten rounds up his friends, and they join the gang in their plan. Brian then decides to pull off his big hero moment by saving Scooby from Cerberus by punching the heads repeatedly. The Rottens turn into bowling balls while the others distract Cerberus and trip him up, sending him rolling back into the underworld. Fred then takes out a clue he stole from Dastardly's ship, which Velma reads and determines means that only Scooby and Shaggy can close the portal, but there's a catch. One of them has to stay behind in the underworld to keep it closed. Scooby and Shaggy try to stop one another from making the sacrifice, but ultimately, Shaggy decides to do it. They close the portal, but Scooby is sad about losing his best friend. The others comfort him until they realize Alexander the Great has come up with a way to see his friend, Peritas, again. A statue of Alexander and Peritas appears with an inscription he created. Scooby reads it and reopens the portal. Cerberus kicks Shaggy out and returns him to Scooby, where they embrace him, and Shaggy gives Scooby his collar back. The Rottens then turn on Dastardly and Mudley, giving them to Brian and Dee to take into custody. The gang opens a Mystery Inc. shop to expand their business, and Brian presents them with a brand new Mystery Machine. The anime movie ends as Mystery Inc. gets a call for another mystery and heads off on their next big case.